what to hear. Drink a good deal of it, make a good meal of it, stick to your old-fashioned beer. Now don't be afraid of it, drink till you're made of it. Now all together a cheer.
Hey folks, it's now been 2 weeks since the events of my homebrewing adventure with the Brewferm Buckrider Belgian homebrew kit. And I put it away at a original gravity of 10.59, and now it's down to 10.010, which means it's pretty much fermented out. Now the device that the brewing compass that they included with the package did not get to its reading of 4, but it looks like it's pretty much got all the sugar out that we can, so we got to move on to the next phase, which is going to be secondary fermentation in the bottles. And in my case, this is what I live for, to save all these bottles from other beers that I've drunken, just clean them out and save them for putting homebrew in if I ever get to that again, or give them to other people who need bottles for a homebrew contest. So I've got plenty of these to go with, and I'm going to start inspecting these, make sure they're still clean, put them put them in a tub with more of the OxyCleaner to get them nice and cleaned out, get the dust, any bugs, whatever. And we're just going to go with that and set them up to dry and move along from there. So it's just, like I said, we're inspecting. We're going to start loading these and pouring in some hot water and the OxyClean type cleaner. And yes, this is going to take a while, so we'll just leave this and come back to it when we get to our next step. So I've brought a few things from my previous home brewing equipment, including a bottle tree, which is a good thing for just hanging bottles on to dry. And you can just bottle them, or hang them to dry rather, in like a plastic crate or the rack of a dishwasher, that kind of thing. You can even wash your bottles in the dishwasher. Now, one thing to point out is the bottles you want to use, because you're going to have to start saving bottles, is going to have to be the kind that don't have the screw tops on them, because it's going to be very hard to get a cap on there. You can always just check for dirt, and you're going to have to rinse. And here's where the rubber meets the road, or some other silly cliche like that. It's time to bottle. I have put the fermenting bucket a little higher up, because when I put the bottling wand on there, it will need some room. I have, and I also wanted to tell you, you have the option, if you have enough of these, what they call swing top bottles or Grosch bottles, and that's a little easier to work with, but again, you will need to sanitize the rubber seal and use that. Or I would not recommend using screw-on plastic bottles like soda bottles, whatever, because we're going to add more priming sugar, which is going to cause a secondary fermentation, and you're going to get more pressure inside. Your bottles could pop on you. But anyway, so you are going to have to go to a homebrew shop and get some bottle caps like this, and we have to boil them a little bit to help us sanitize, and then you can usually get a capper like this, which is very handy for you. Someone a couple of years ago gave me this lovely bench capper, which apparently was available from the Sears Roebuck catalog many years ago. So we're going to take our bags of caps and boil them and be right back. Here is my pan full of pre-boiled bottle caps. I have several varieties in here, including some cork line crowns that came with the old bottle capper, and they're just going to sit around and get corroded anyway. But they are relatively clean, and if there's some bugs in them, well, that's a Belgian style. So the thing about homebrew kits is you can't really hold the maker responsible for your mistakes once it gets out of their hands. So it's just part of the adventure of homebrewing. And now we're going to take our bottling wand and fit it, hopefully. Fit it to the spigot. And yes, I'm doing this sitting on the basement floor because, well, we're dealing with wet glass, stuff that's going to be under pressure. I'd rather have things not have so far to fall. I had to put a crate underneath the bottle, the fermenter, because if it was sitting on the chair, this would go all the way to the floor. So we're going to start to grab some of our, I'm just going to move over here. There's our bottle tree of washed bottles. And let's start getting set up. Oh, and we need to get our fermentation drops. Hold on there. And these are your fermentation drops, also called carbonation drops, whatever. It's just little pellets of solid sugar, because what we're doing, instead of transferring off the yeast and any hop leaves to another fermenter for a secondary fermentation, we're going to do a secondary fermentation in the bottle. That is a method, and so that's why we say it's going to build up some more pressure, because we don't have the airlock to vent off any carbon dioxide. It's just going to make a lot of pressure, bubbles, and just a little bit more alcohol. Okay, we just needed to get some of the air out of there and this just has a little kind of a switch. We just put our bottle in here. Yeah, this will take a while, won't it? Yeah, I'm going to probably speed up the process right here. But if we can get a good look at this, we can see that it is filling up here. Want to get it up to right about the neck. And this is portioned out for 12-ounce bottles. So we just drop one of our things in here. And there is our capper. We put our halfway filled bottle here. Put our cap on top. Give it a good squeeze. And we have a bottled beer. One more time. Filled up our bottle. Add our sugar drop. Put a crown on it. Give it a good till it comes loose like that, and we have a bottled beer. Now, the home brewing tradition is that as you are doing your bottling, or even as you're doing your brewing, transferring to secondary, you got to have a bottle of beer in your hand. But I don't want to lose control of this whole situation. This is already kind of spilling onto the floor, and I'm going to have to clean that up already. So I'm just doing my instant coffee here. But let's continue this this fun little process, which is going to have to be repeated over 42 or so times. Yeah, this goes just a little more smoothly once you get the first few figured out. Fill up about midway into the neck. Okay, carbonation drop. Grab your cap. This one takes a little bit of brute force. You kind of want that to come up stuck to the cap a little bit, work it loose, and there's a nice indentation. That kind of shows you have put all the force, pressure to bear that you can do on this. Well, the end of the line has been hit. You can kind of tell because, of course, we ran out. I tilted this all the way, and what's left in the tube is pretty cloudy and full of yeast. And I've only got half a bottle here, so I'm just going to cap this and put a mark on it and just see what happens. But we are almost done. I'm just setting this aside to make people motion sick. And here is the final result. We have 35 bottles plus one half fill that are now carbonated with priming sugar, and they are in a plastic container in the basement where it's going to be kept for about 10 to 14 days at room temperature, and then we'll put them in the beer cellar to lager for a little while. The reason that it is in a plastic carton is that there is still a possibility, though very small, that some of these could blow their tops or the glass could explode. So we just want to not have a mess. And so yeah, we only have 35 bottles. They said the batch should come up with 42, but I may have measured the water wrong, whatever. But we should be able to come back in a couple more weeks and try our beer. And meanwhile, I've got some cleaning up and putting away. So it's now been a month since I moved the bottles into the lagering area, which is my beer cellar. It's actually under the front stoop of our house. So it gets pretty chilly in the cold, and sometimes stuff leaks onto it, but especially in a snowstorm. So here's where the bottles have sat, been chilling for 5 weeks now, so it's time to take one out. And they look generally nice and clear. Let's put it in front of the light. There's a little bit of haze from perhaps some of the yeast at the bottom, but when I usually homebrew, I tend to get a lot of little hop pellet particles, but there were none in this beer making kit, so it looks pretty decent. And finally, here we are in my cluttered home office right next to the cellar in the basement over there. And so we have a beer that we brewed on November 28th. We bottled it on December 13th and measured it to be about 6% alcohol by volume. Cellared it on Christmas Eve, and now it's January 31st, so it's probably as ready to try as ever. I went ahead and stuck one of their pre-supplied labels on it, and this is again the Saison. And I have my dump in case I have an accident, and because it's fermented in the bottle, we could get a nasty gusher going here, and I don't want to do it in front of all our equipment. So this is going to go on the floor where it's easy to get to. I have a suitable glass for a Saison, a Duvel glass, and let's just pop it open. And once again, no matter how well they make these little homebrew kits, they can't be totally responsible for the final finished project. There's too many variables that come from the brewer, either unsanitary glass or bottles, or just not quite following the instructions exactly, or even following the instructions and still getting something wrong. So this taste is mostly on me. So let's move my pitcher where it's accessible and see what happens. Yep, we got a gusher going. Luckily not too much of one. So from now on we'll be opening it in the sink. Over the sink. But it does have a nice Saison smell. I've got a lot of foam here, so I may pause or skip to this while I wait for this to die down. In fact, I'm going to pause it and wipe up here a little bit. And here we are. We finally let it settle down. Shows some nice legs here, the foam on the side of the glass. Does have a nice spicy Saison smell, which is probably why this was a safe style to pick, because it does some good results even at warm temperatures. And nice and hazy. There were some particles in this. This may have been part of the glass, but at least there always could be something left behind in the bottle from the last beer that was in it too, but nothing distracting. Frankly, it's pretty good. Very much like a regular Saison style beer, whether a Saison DuPont or the local example that we can't get in Illinois anymore is the Spotted Cow from New Glarus. But I think I've managed to come up with something pretty good. Now, is it goof-proof because I followed the recipe, or is it because I took all those extra steps? Nah. It does have a little tartness that you might associate with bacteria, perhaps, or some Brett or whatever, but it's not overdone, and it's akin to the gushers I used to get when I first did home brewing at the brew on premise until I switched to home brewing at home. So yeah, this turned out very nicely. This is the Brewferm Sacred Saison, from the homebrew kit, and it's turned out very nicely. So yeah, I would recommend trying it out for yourself.
Now don't be